Hi guys, this is Vu from onlinemusictutorials.com, and I wanted to give you a quick introductory lesson on how to read music. I know this is a goal for many of you guys, so this is the first lesson in a 12-lesson series on the introductory course on music theory. If you guys would like to see all the tutorials, including the practice problems and whatnot, be sure to check out the link in the descriptions below. So without any further ado, let's dive straight into it. The first lesson is meant to be more of an intro on the world of reading music and more to build an intuition for the next lessons to come. We'll start by looking at this piece of sheet music right here, and you'll see that there are two very large bars here, one on top and one on bottom. We're looking for sheet music specifically formatted for the piano, so the top part is known as the treble clef. You can see it right here, that little symbol is the treble clef. And the bottom one here is the bass clef. These are generally the two most common clefs we'll see in music. However, we'll introduce you to two other clefs in between these two clefs called the alto clef and the tenor clef. But anyways, for today, we'll just be focusing on the top clef, the treble clef. This is common for melodic parts. When you're playing the right hand on the piano, you'll be reading this clef, for instance. Or if you're playing higher pitched instruments such as the piano, the saxophone, the trumpet, or even the flute, you'll be working in the treble clef. So what you have to know is that in the Western tradition, there are a total of 7 natural notes. We'll learn more in later lessons about sharps and flats, but just know that there are only 7 letters that represent notes on a page. I'm going to show you a chart here to demonstrate what I'm talking about. And it might look a little bit confusing at first, but promise me you won't freak out here, and I can assure you that we'll talk through it and it's going to be pretty easy. So as you can see from the chart here, from the alphabetical top, we have the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and then it repeats back again, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and so on and so forth. It's also important to note where on this bar the notes are placed. There are actually 2 places on the bar you can place a note. As you can see, the notes can either fall in between these lines here or fall directly on the line. Notes that are placed off the bar still follow this rule, but we're given additional lines. I think it's called letter lines, and this is just to help people read and see exactly how far off the bar is. As you can see, the C here is on the line. This B here is in between the line. The A is on the line. The G in between, and so on and so forth. Once we get to a point where the note is just like so far off the bar that we can barely read it, that's when we introduce a different clef. For instance, this treble clef here, this E that is way below the line here, is way too difficult to read, would actually be placed right here on the bass clef, and it's a lot more simple to read. So clefs pretty much tell us where and how to translate the notes relative to the position on the staff. So now that you sort of see the full picture, let's take it all away and break it down for a little bit. First off, let's just try to memorize a single note. At the bottom of the staff here, in between these 2 lines, the last line and the second to last line, we have the note F. There's really nothing significant about the note F besides the fact that it's at the bottom of the staff, and it gives us a good starting point to work off of. Next, we'll continue to place additional notes in between these lines. Remember how I said before, you can either place a note on the line or in between a line. So from F, we'll have the next note A, and then the next note C, and then the next note E. So that takes care of all the notes that fall in between the lines on the staff. What we'll take a look at next are all the notes that fall on the lines on the staff. We'll do the same process, and we'll start at the very bottom of the staff again. And that note on the line is an E. From there, we'll continue and put additional notes on the line, and from there we have G, B, D, and F. looking at this, a simple mnemonic to remember this by is every good boy does fine. Every good boy does fine. E, G, B, D, F. That essentially covers all the placements of the notes on the musical staff. Like I said, there are only 7 notes that you need to remember. That's it, just 7. A lot of times I'm speaking with people wanting to learn music or beginning to learn music, and they get pretty discouraged. They see a lot of musicians playing like a million notes at the same time on piano, and they can't even comprehend how one gets to that level to be able to read music that fast. And obviously, it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of practice, and it all starts somewhere. So don't be discouraged. At this point, I'd encourage you to take a quick minute, pause the video, and try to memorize these notes on your own as best as you can. And once you feel ready, let's take a look at some of these notes again and try to name them as best as we can, and see how far we can go. So as you can see, we have a picture of a note right here. You might also notice this little weird flaggy looking thing, and you're probably wondering what the heck that is, but we're actually going to cover that in the next lesson, so don't worry about that too much. So you're probably wondering, how we get from learning face to being able to name this note right here. And the trick is, start from somewhere you're familiar with, starting from a note that you've already memorized and work your way up from there. For instance, if you know before, the first letter F from face starts at the very bottom line, right? It's an in-between note, so it's in between the very bottom line and the next line, face, right there. And we can see that this note right here is also another in-between note, and it's the next note from F, the next in-between note from F. And if we know face, F-A-C-E, we know that this is actually an A. This one might actually be a little bit tricky since we actually haven't seen this one before. It doesn't fall on the staff, it's outside of the staff. But with a little bit of thinking, we can navigate our way around and figure out what these 2 notes are. If we take a look at the second note first, this one should be a little bit easier. We know that that's on the bar, and we had 2 of those mnemonics before. We had face, and we had, every good boy does fine. So this note falls on the line, the very bottom line. So it's the first note of the mnemonic device, E, every for every. So we know that's an E, and we know that the next note, D, is the next note below it. So, if we know our alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, we know that note that comes before it is actually a D. So those 2 notes are D and E. And the very last exercise in this video is a little bit harder still, but you guys are smart, and I'm sure you guys can do it. So take a look at this for a little bit and see if you can come up for the right notes. So yeah, if you didn't know already, the first note is a C and the second note is a B. Now it's a little bit tricky, but we're using that same technique as we did before. We know the very bottom note is an E, so we're just counting 2 steps below it. So E goes backwards to D, and then it goes down to C. So the first note is a C. The second note is a little bit easier. First, we know that it's a note that falls on the line. So we know to use the second mnemonic there. Every good boy does fine. Yeah, there we go. Every good boy does fine. So the first note on the very bottom is an E. The next note on the next line is a G, and the note that's in the middle, the note that we see here, is a B. So that's a B. Well, that's all I have for you for this first lesson. I hope you guys found it helpful. And, if you want to hone your skills a little bit more or look for more exercises, be sure to check out the link in the description below. I'll have more practice problems for you, and perhaps a game or something that can help do kind of like a flashcards kind of thing. It takes a little bit of practice, but, I'm sure if you just, spend a little bit of time, you'll be clicking out and popping out those notes in no time. I hope you guys found it helpful, and we'll be doing the next lesson shortly.